At this time, I would like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Education into session for Monday, March 25th, 2024. We will have a moment of silence. After that moment of silence, we will have the presentation of colors by the Bunker Hill Air Force Junior ROTC program under the direction of Major Ron Jones. And then following the posting of colors, Ms. Michelle Teague will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand and join me in a moment of silence. Post the colors. Right. Hey. Forward. Right. Oh. Hey. Breathe out. Colors.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Colors. You may be seated. This time I'll recognize Major Jones to introduce his.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and board members. This is my pride and joy, our color guard for Bunker Hill High School. I want to point out a couple of individuals that we're very proud of. First up is going to be the one carrying the American flag. This is our Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Carlos Chavez. He is going to be graduating this year. He's a senior and he's going to be going to CBCC to go into a nursing program. So not everybody goes to the military. On his right is Jacob Houston. He is a junior. He is actually going to apply for the Air Force Academy next year. So we're hoping that we'll see great things out of him. And to Carlos's left, I have my most junior member, Emily Foster. She is a sophomore. And to her left is Landon Mitchell. And so I expect great things in the near future out of the three that are going to be staying with us next year. So we're excited about our program. We've managed to double our enrollment just this year. So we expect another instructor to be coming on board and to help us out. So it's going to be good things for Bunker Hill. So we're proud of our program. Thank you very much.
Right. Hey. Forward. Right. And again, thank you, Major Jones and members of that color guard. Board members, you have received copies of the February 26, 2024 and March 11, 2024 meeting minutes in your packet. At this time, I will entertain either a motion to accept or any corrections that we need to consider.
Mr. Chairman, March the 11th noted that on page 1, while I was not present, states that Chairman Abernathy voted in favor of the motion. And on page 6, Chairman Abernathy voted in favor of the motion. And again, I was not there, nor the chair.
Thank you for those clarifications.
I realize there's always a lot to keep up with, just wanting to make that for the record.
Just making sure Debbie gets those. So then, are there other corrections to either of the minutes that we need to consider? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected by Mr. Abernathy at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes with the corrections that have been noted.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I
Second.
second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of those minutes, please signify by raising your hand. And that appears to be unanimous. Thank you. At this time, then, we come to the adjustment and approval of the agenda. Dr. Stover?
Thank you, Chairman Taylor. Members of the board, the administration is asking for a few changes tonight. We would like, in addition to consent 3, for an overnight out-of-state field trip for Challenger High School for Skills USA. We'd also like to amend new business number 6. The 3 items would be the classified personnel suspension dismissal policy, the non-school employment policy, and the leave of absence policy. We'd like to remove the second 2 that I mentioned.
Okay, we have, also, is there a need to add the closed session at the end?
Yes, Chairman Taylor, thank you. We'd like to also add closed session at the end of the meeting.
So we have those adjustments to the agenda that have been presented. Is there questions or a motion to those effects?
For new business number 6, could we also remove number 11 and 12 since they didn't make it into the folder? This is the first time we're getting to look at them.
Mr. Settlemeyer, would you like to move that those be?
I can go ahead and talk about them.
And that is 611. Okay. Mr. Settlemeyer is requesting that new business 11 and 12 be removed. Any other?
I was going to second that if he made a motion.
I don't know that that takes a motion. Does it, council?
You would modify the agenda.
Okay. So we're asking that that be removed, and in accordance with Mr. Settlemeyer's wish, the motion then would cover that. So any other adjustments? So hearing none, I will entertain motions.
I make a motion that we accept the agenda with the noted changes.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by raised hand. And that is unanimous. At this time, we come to the superintendent's report.
So I'd like to invite the members of the board to come out. We've got several recognitions this evening. we would like to start with our Homes for Heroes Employees of the Month. So thank you, Mr. Geddes, for being here this evening. Our first employee of the month is our principal from Startown Elementary School. We'd like to recognize Ms. Stott and her family. Ms. Stott, come on up. Ms. Scott has been an incredible teacher, assistant teacher, administrator in this district, and we're thankful for her and all she does. Thank you. Our next certified employee of the month is from Fred T. Ford High School. I'd like to recognize Ms. Smith's husband for being here. Thank you, Mr. Trey, the principal. And so Ms. Smith, please come on up to be recognized. He represents a very strong counseling department at Fred T. Ford High School. Wonderful job. Our next employee of the month is our classified employee of the month, who's Miss Cindy Britton from Bandy's High School. Let's give her a big round of applause. I got to tell you this quick story. Went out to see her, and it was in the middle of lunch. And Dr. Maynard, his staff, Mr. Harbison were there, and all the kids from Bandy's just cheered for her. And she got that award. I just thought that was first class. Congratulations. Thank you.
Get three of you in the middle right here. You can see me. Up here, we're gonna count down, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. Stay right there, I don't know. Anybody? I'm good? All right, thank you.
This time, I'd like, we got one more, I'm so sorry. All right, so Mr. Westmore is our high school director and athletic director, and he's going to announce some very special students we have with us tonight. More state champions from Catawba County.
Absolutely, thank you, appreciate it. So we're gonna start out with Bandy's High School. And so quite to recognize here a few folks. So first up, Cage Hefner. So Cage, come on up. Cage is a senior from Bandy's High School. He was the indoor track pole vaulting 2A state champion. Thank you, the head coach, Jason Barnes, for being here, supporting him. I believe about 16 feet, I believe it was, and that's a county record. So, yeah, so he's second place plus 15, right? So you think about a whole foot. So congratulations, bud. That's incredible. Next from Bandy's High School is N. Moore, 12th grader. Ian was a 2-way, 175-pound state wrestling champion. So, okay. Great job. And also want to recognize his coach, Coach Justin Adams. So Coach Adams, he was the wrestling 2A Coach of the Year for the entire state. So congratulations. Also, the whole administrative teams here from Bandy's High School, the whole brain trust. Thank you for being here. Next time. All right, and lastly, we want to recognize Fredford High School, their wrestling. Mr. Braden Mahia, come on up, sir. He's the 3A, 165-pound state champ. And I believe this is his third title, the 3P, I believe. His head coach, Byron Simmons, back here as well. So, Coach, thank you for your hard work. And lastly, it's not here, Coach Mike Carey was former head coach of Prep T4. The way wrestling does it is they kind of go off of last year's stats. So he was also the 3A coach. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you.
Everybody up here, we're gonna count down, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. Stay right there. Here, film camera spot. Thank you.
I'd like to again congratulate all of those employees, the student athletes and coaches for a job well done. Momentarily, we will begin the public comment section of our meeting. And given the events of recent past, I just wanted to give a few clarifications on procedures and policies. Tonight's meeting is a regularly scheduled meeting. So we're having public comment, not public hearing. That means that any member of the public who is signed up may address the board on any topic of which they have a concern about. We invite and we welcome those comments. Again, as Ms. Davis often cautions, those comments are asked to be respectful, also not to either slander or malign any member of the public, this board, or the community. We, I think, afford more opportunity for public comment and public hearing than any elected board in the Unifor area. So we do invite your comment. We ask that members of the audience during this time be respectful, that we can have this and get the input from everyone in an orderly, civil, and respectful manner. And with that, I will turn it over to our council.
It's fine. As you recall, the amount of time you have for each public is 3 minutes. I'm trying to make this so that I could. Yes, just barely. Okay, just barely do it, apparently, is the trick. So each of you have 3 minutes. There are 10 people who have signed up. Each of you have 3. As you can see on the corner of the screens, there's your timer for 3 minutes. So you can see it there from the podium. We ask you not to mess with the mics. When you do come up to the podium, if you don't mind, speak clearly, state your name. I believe that we can see each person's name as it's spelled, but if we have a question, I'll ask you, and so that Miss Wetzel can take that down accurately. Sometimes an E looks like an I, an I looks like an E. And then I know I trail off the end of my last name. So the first person who has signed up to speak is Kimberly Turk. Ms. Turk, if you'll come up.
Good evening. I'm sorry I missed the last regularly scheduled board meeting. I'm the coach for my high school's quiz bowl team, and they were competing and doing an amazing job against 11 other high schools in our neighboring counties. One of them has even qualified for the national tournament in Chicago. 3 Catawba County high schools participated this year. That is down from 5 a decade ago when my children were competing. 15 years ago, the Catawba Elementary Science Olympiad competition included 20 teams from 15 different Catawba County schools. Last year, 1 elementary school in Catawba County brought 2 teams. This year, we did not have an elementary tournament in Catawba County because of this lack of interest. As fewer elementary schools have competed in Science Olympiad, the number of middle and high schools has also decreased. A decade ago, half the schools competing at the Hickory Regional Tournament were from Catawba County. This year, 1 Catawba County middle school and 2 Catawba County high schools participated. This is a drastic decrease in our representation in these academic competitions. I stay after school once a week for an hour and a half to work with my Quiz Bowl team. I traveled with them for 3 competitions, getting home after my normal bedtime, and I took them to Duke University one weekend for a competition. I buy snacks for our weekly meeting because hungry teenagers are much less pleasant to be around than sugared teenagers. In order to pay for our registration fees and the pizza that we ate before the competitions, the kids sold Slim Jims this year. That fundraiser did not cover all of our costs and has left us in the hole. The time I spend with Quiz Bowl is all volunteer time. I receive no compensation, no comp time, and no continuing education credit, even though leading this team is related to my curriculum. I'm lucky that my own children are grown and I have the time to volunteer. I'm also happy to use some of the money that I earn at my second job to support this effort. However, teachers should not be expected to donate their time and money to make sure kids have extracurricular opportunities. Over the last year, the school board has spent in excess of $20,000 on book bans, while teachers from across the county have spent unpaid hours with clubs and academic teams. They have used their own money to buy treats and classroom supplies. Teachers are going to be less interested in staying after school for no compensation while watching money being wasted. Subtraction does not result in growth. A negative mindset and a goal of taking things away will not build our community. Please help Catawba County schools grow.
Lynn Dorfman.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. Usually I come and I talk about one of the many excellent books I've read. Thanks to the book banning effort, I've read a lot of good books. Well, I'm here tonight just to say it's so nice to see a robust agenda that's about education and students and educators. And I want to thank you for what you do to engage, inspire, and empower our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dorfman. Flavia Dietrich.
I want to talk about what happened here last week because we witnessed a coordinated spectacle, the hijacking of the Catawba School Board by a busload of Burke Church religious extremists. After taking up about half the room, making it impossible for some Catawba citizens to attend their own school board meeting, they proceeded to use our board as a revival festival. Ignoring that this is a school board with rules to be followed, the congregation had to shout amen after each speech they agreed with, unchecked by their leaders. The speeches were another gem of Christian extremism. One pastor spent his time peddling his religious beliefs instead of addressing the book we had a hearing for, and made sure to repeat they were not banning books when by definition that's exactly what's being done. Another pastor, better known for comparing gay people to maggots and murderers, cited the 1645 Old Satan Deluder Act as if it were relevant to a 2024 debate on books. This actually 1647 Act was created by Puritans to ensure everybody would read the Bible and children's minds would be filled with scripture. He went on to say, those who passed the law would never think such garbage, meaning the book 19 Minutes, would be in children's hands. No, they never did. They also never thought that slavery would end because they thought it was right. They never thought that women would be able to vote because they thought women were inferior. They never thought that Christians wouldn't be allowed to burn people who disagreed with them. They never thought there would be a constitution separating church from state and guaranteeing freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Finally, he had no words of his own about the book, but read from the Moms for Liberty Book Club's website. The spectacle continued, with another pastor being removed from the premises after multiple warnings, disrupting the proceedings. I hope everyone watches the recording of that board meeting. That show gives us a flavor of what this board will turn into when dominated by religious zealots who think they can decide for everybody, who think that because they were elected, they can ban any books they want, trample the rights of parents who disagree with them, and turn the Catawba School Board into an intolerant church. Ironically, one speaker who wanted the book to be banned warned us about Nazi Germany. Maybe she didn't know that in 1933, Nazis burned all the books from the Institute of Sexology, an academic institution that, among other things, supported gay rights because the Nazis considered it filth. Makes it quite clear which side of history you're on when you even use the same words. Thank you.
I'd like to make a point of clarification for the last speaker.
Would you address that to me, and I will communicate that to her?
Yes, I wanted to see, okay, so she referred to, I guess she was referring to Pastor Paul Deal, that he is actually from Burke County. He does not cross county lines. He's actually from Catawba County. And I just wanted to clarify that, or find out where she had heard that he was from Burke County.
Again, the point of order was made by Ms. Pastor Deal, Willers Grove Baptist Church, understand it is a Catawba County resident. So that, do you want me to refer the question as well, Ms. Teague? Ms. Thank you.
That's incorrect.
Again, I don't have a GIS map, so I can't speak to that, but the objection is noted by Ms. Teague.
Next speaker is Todd Buff.
Good evening. My name is Todd Buff. I'm a very concerned parent of a child that's in our school system. Matter of fact, he's in the middle school right now, soon to be in high school. Now, I've looked at the policies that the school board has put in place, and, you know, some are very impressive. They really are. The focus on students, it's about, you know, having a safe, clean, and an inviting environment. I mean, you even got policies for homeless students. God forbid we have any. For unsafe school transfers, even for lockdowns, you know, and so forth and so on. But how do all of this apply to our students? It's their physical well-being that I'm seeing. What steps do we have in place to help protect their mind? We are the only ones that can safeguard our children's minds. Okay. Now, I'm sure you got maybe mental health training programs. Maybe you've got suicide risk protocols in place. Most kids have laptops, they got cell phones, and I know there's safeguards on them, probably particularly close to their usage. But when I found out about what happened in here, the last board meeting, when y'all voted to keep a particular book in the high school library, I'm livid. I'm outraged. You know, my son is soon going to be in the high school. And there's a potential for him to be exposed to this filth. Now, I know you got a policy in place to where I can sit and censor what he's going to read. Okay, I know how to do that. But that's not 100% protection for my boy. What keeps another student from checking it out and sharing it with my boy? They already bring schools into books like this. I mean, into school like this. You know, I realize that our world is not a perfect place. I understand that. You know your goals. Along with my support, is to educate academics to our kids, period. The ending objective is to prepare these children to enter careers. You know, I said all this to say this. You know, we have opened up a Pandora's box. The dam's leaking. If we don't fix it, well, it's going to come crashing down and there's going to be havoc going behind it. These kids are called dependents for a reason. Why can't our kids just be kids and enjoy their school years with us trying to make them be an adult so fast? I don't get it. Now that this stuff is in the library and the foot's in the door, it's a precursor to things to come. What's going to be the next step? They're going to be in class. I mean, what's next in future meetings? Changing the sex ed class to who you identify as in middle school? Let's throw some critical race theory in the schools. You know, I appreciate what all y'all do, but I see a lack of common sense on some of these folks in this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buff. Teresa Reichard.
Hello, thank you once again for letting us speak tonight. I do want to talk a little bit about the last meeting too. The pastor that got removed, he didn't follow the rules. Simple as that. He got removed. He was warned several times. Every single meeting you guys have, you tell us about how we need to act, how we need to behave, and some people just can't seem to do that. And there's consequences, as it should be. So I applaud the chair for actually doing what needed to be done last time. And the fact that he's a pastor doesn't give him a free pass to not follow the rules. Everybody was so outraged over that, but again, don't follow the rules, you pay the consequences. There was also a lady here talking about atheists being in the room as if that was the most horrible thing that could ever happen. I do want you to remember, as board members, that in our county, we also have Jewish students, Catholic, Hindus, Hmong, Muslims, all different types of people. The school must serve all of these people, not just the religious right. We have separation of church and state in this country. I feel like that is a very important distinction that should be made, and we shouldn't be worrying about what's in the Bible or whatever book you want to go by. It should have more to do with what is right for the children, regardless of their religion. Okay. And I also want to thank the board for doing the right thing last week by keeping that book in the library. Again, can also be blocked by anybody that doesn't want their child to read it. But I hope this will end this chapter of the book banning in this county. It's gone on for 2 years. It's wasted so much time and money, and it really hasn't changed much of anything. And it is banning the books, no matter what anybody wants to say. You can call it whatever you want. It's banning them from our schools. Not banning from everywhere, we realize that, but it is still banning. But I do want to just remind everybody, they're working for everybody, all the students of this county. And as we've said numerous times, any parent can block that book if they don't want their child to read it. And by having that policy in place is how we're truly honoring parents' rights, and not just one person's opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Schurmeyer.
So Erin Schurmeyer, ErinSchuermeyer. The school board has an important job to make sure Catawba County Schools is the best possible school system for all students, faculty, and staff. That means LGBTQ students. Students who are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, and other religions, or no religion. You aren't just representing conservative Christians. You are representing a range of faiths, of socioeconomic backgrounds, of sexual orientations, of gender identities, and races. It's a lot of different things to balance and to have to juggle. Some like to argue you should support a conservative Christian worldview because we are a Christian nation. Our founders didn't start us as one. Many of them were deists and would likely balk at the claim that we're a Christian nation. People cite the pledge and "In God We Trust" being on our money as to us being a Christian nation, but it's not as simple as that. "In God We Trust" was first added to all money in 1864 in response to the Civil War. That was actually just coins. It was added to all money in 1955 in response to the Second Red Scare, as was it being added to our pledge under God. It was not in there before the 50s. If our founders had intended us to be a Christian nation, wouldn't all of these have been done sooner? Like when we first started having official money and when the pledge was first written? So, as a school board member, sometimes you're going to have to make hard, unpopular decisions. Sometimes you're going to have to vote against your personal beliefs in order to best support everyone involved in our schools. For those of you who have put your egos aside to do that, thank you. It takes a lot of humbleness to be able to do that and a lot of integrity. For those of you that don't, perhaps some self-reflection is in order. Are you doing this for the benefit of all of our students and leading with the love that I've requested you lead with multiple times? Or are you acting with fear and self-interest instead? Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Sparks.
I'm just waiting to see if I wait to talk, if the clock won't start until I actually enunciate. And there you go. Nice job, Marty. The premise of civil discourse is based on trust. Trust that we all have the same goals. Trust that we are members of the society in good faith. Trust that we're being transparent in our desires, our views, and our goals. My goal has never changed. I am a fanatic for public education for one simple reason. It has been shown throughout time that public education is the greatest force for leveling opportunities in society. Whether you measure it by number of job opportunities, the disparity in income levels from highest earners to lowest levels, come what may, public education is it. And I'm a fanatic for it. We argue here and have been arguing for 2 years over the status of a couple of dozen books. Are we demonstrating to our children how to have disagreements? I think not. I was called a pedophile in the local newspaper. That caused my daughters to roar with laughter. They have a robust sense of humor and irony. But gee whiz, is that how y'all were raised? Flyers were passed out accusing 2 members of this board of promoting pedophilia. Is this serious discourse? Show me a student from this school that has been hurt by the presence of a book on the shelves. We're told that we're not banning books. Horse shit. I know what comes next. We get books out of the schools, and this has been shown time and again in this country and others. Where do we go next? Public libraries. Tell me it's not true if I'm off base. Or are you going to say pornography is okay in public libraries? I'm not making a joke. This is deadly serious to me. I'm a fanatic for public education, and I'm a fanatic for the First Amendment. By the way, I have no problem with any group whatsoever coming here and speaking their mind. I think that's what the First Amendment is all about. People, I'm okay if people come from Cumberland, Tennessee, and speak about public schools. It's the First Amendment, y'all. But let's be honest about our goals and live with them. Thank you.
Lawrence Wiedemann.
Good evening. First off, thank you very much for live streaming your board meetings. I was unable to attend last week, and I very much appreciate having firsthand data versus media reporting. Now, I mean no slight to Ms. Banks' report in the Hickory Daily Record. I thought it was spot on and well written. So anyway, I was surprised, disappointed that you disallowed reading of Jodi Picoult's letter. I thought it was pertinent. In her letter, she specifically discredited one of the arguments that Ms. Teague made against the book. So anyway, I know I have quoted scripture in these meetings. I'm likely to quote the Constitution. There is a line from Field of Dreams that I've toyed with quoting. But I'd like to know where I can read the rules of what cannot be read or quoted. So if y'all can forward that to me, send me a reference, that'd be swell. Secondly, Ms. Moss last week made some comments that were grossly inappropriate and out of line. If I were Muslim or perhaps Jewish, and I made a similar attack on Christian people, I'm sure that I would have been met with outrage and censure. Okay, back to rules. If you could point me to the rules governing what is allowed, is not allowed in that genre of content, that would be swell too. Lastly, I still find it hard to believe Ms. Teague is allowed to be both plaintiff and judge in her petitions. Now, I know Ms. Teague read the recusal rules for us a few weeks back or a few months back. I feel that there's a disqualifying element in there somewhere. So if y'all could forward me the rules so I can read them and at least convince myself that verily it is in there or it's not in there, that too would be swell. If you share the rules with me, I'll do my best to play by them and hope others will show comparable compliance and respect. Thank you.
We did allow her to read that whole letter. It was at the end when we said that you couldn't bring in things that
Actually,
had been written.
the point of order, half of it was read, Mr. Settlemeyer, and again, exactly, and I'll be honest with you, that policy, which I think was recently adopted, escaped me. I think half of it was read, but your point of order is correct. And Mr. Weideman, if you will make sure that someone has your email, we will endeavor to get you those policies that you requested.
All right, John Smith. Just says Hickory, no topic. John Smith. I guess that's not a person or they're not here. Okay. Clayton Mullis.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for your time. And the topic that I wanted to speak about is conservative leadership. And to hear it be here in Catawba County and the rumors and the attacks that I have heard of what a Catawba County board would look like if certain individuals would be on the board that happen to associate as conservative, or these far right radical Christians that only think the Bible should be here and we should protest the 10 Commandments on the walls, to hear it is kind of ludicrous. So I'm here tonight to let you know that some of those individuals that ran for the Board of Education didn't run for a book ban. That just happens to particularly be an issue, and you have to take a stance on it. But I'm here to tell you what I think conservative leadership looks like and stands for in public education. I think as conservatives, I think public education is the number one priority. What has a big impact on that for a student is parental involvement. Not always, but majority of the time it does. I think conservative leadership recognizes that and would work hard to make sure that that happens. I think also conservative leadership would look at all ideas, whether it's artificial intelligence or having more teachers in the classroom. But I think as conservative leadership, as myself, I'm more focused on putting teachers in the classroom, working with state leaders on not just hollering about we want teacher pay. I think as conservatives, you look at the realistic issue. Yes, we would like to give teachers pay raises. And for example, say it was a 10 or 15% raise. You look at the question of not just asking for it, but how do we get there? It's working with state leaders who control the state budget. North Carolina's budget, over 60% of the budget is on public education. It's not always about making more investments with money that will make public education great. It's working hard to see where we're wasting money and looking where we can work hard to make better investments. So I just want to clarify tonight that conservatives are not here to attack public education. Conservatives believe, majority, I personally believe, number one, it's a family's decision on how that child is educated, whether it's private school, public school, charter school. We personally chose to send our children through the public schools, and we're grateful and we're blessed. Our two kids do great. But I want it to be known in this community that conservatives will fight hard every day to make public education the best it can be. And yes, there are more issues to worry about than just book banning, and conservatives will fight hard for that. Thank you.
Chairman, that concludes our public comment section of the board meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. We now turn to consent items. And Dr. Stover, if you could speak to those for us, please.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board. In your packet are consent items, and we do ask for your approval this evening.
And again, those were adjusted to start along with the whole agenda to include, I think, the Challenger field trip.
Yes, and I just want to comment on that. It is Skills USA. Congratulations to Challenger for making that, and it was last minute that they made that competition too. So thank you all for just taking time to consider that.
I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Or questions relative to it.
I make a motion that we can vote on the consents that have been put before the board.
Motion is on the floor to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the consent items, please signify by raising your hand. And that's a unanimous vote. Next, we will proceed to unfinished business. Mr. Dan Moore.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board. Construction updates from our project at Maiden Elementary School. We're into the phase where we begin to do a lot of finishes with inside that building. As you can see from that first photo, a lot of work has been completed on the outside. Now we begin to focus on the inside. The building is dried in. That second photo to the right is a photograph of a couple of hot water heaters that have been delivered. The framing on the 600 hallway is shown on that left-hand photograph. On the right hand, you see more work being constructed over the top of what is a hallway. That's where a lot of our mechanical piping is located. We have a mechanical mezzanine that will allow for us to work on the HVAC without disturbing the classroom, and it's located down that hallway, and those units serve those individual classrooms. FRP doors installed at the entrance to one of our commons. You see there on that right-hand side, that picture is from the cafeteria toward the gym. So we have, in many of our schools in Catawba County, we have that common stage or platform. And so we can present both to the cafeteria side and to the gym side. And you're beginning to see that framing on that particular platform. Grading, we are going to seed, if it hasn't already been done, the last time we had a construction meeting was a couple of weeks ago, seeding, grass seeding for those areas to make sure that we give ample time for the grass to grow and it will help with erosion. But most of the basic site work has been completed around the school. Gym ceiling has been painted in that right-hand picture. That is the media center there on the left-hand side, looking out toward the cemetery side of the project. And the right-hand side, you're beginning to see some kitchen work. The hood is being installed. So from this point forward, there'll be a lot of work that'll be completed on the inside that you'll be able to view on Wednesday of this week. Remember that we have an opportunity to visit the site at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. faculty and staff are going to get a little refresher. Of course, you're invited. Greg will be there to help deliver that tour, and we're looking forward to you and the faculty and staff seeing the progress at that particular facility. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Good job, Mr. Moore. We're looking forward to that presentation on Wednesday. Thank you.
Mr. Moore, one question. Where do you want us to meet at?
I think the best place for us is for us to park toward the recreation department. I think that's Bob Smire, that road that comes down by the rec and toward the fields. And then we'll be able to walk right across the street there and go in the main office area. That would be best. Yep. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Moore, for your continued efforts in that maiden project. The second item on unfinished business was just an update on where we are. Self-study, I think it was in our January work session that we had Ramona Powers from the board here presentation for us. The second phase of that is a survey being done by principals and senior office, central office administrative staff, which I think will be completed by the end of this week, Dr. Stover?
Yeah, end of business Thursday, and then we will ask the School Boards Association to have it to you guys mid-April.
So once we receive that information, we will have kind of a survey of our stakeholders, staff, and we can use that some sort of plan as far as our board efforts forward. And microphone. I can't seem to find spot on this.
The lighter you touch it, the
equipment.
better.
Okay. All right. Well, none needed, sir. All right. Any other comments or questions about the Board of Education self-assessment?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask, in what format was it sent out? If it was sent in just this format, I hope there was some explanation as to what it was about or how they're to respond. Because in this format's directed to us as board members to answer.
We received the other one from the School Boards Association that wasn't like yours, and it was sent out via email so they can answer those questions. I asked them to let them know that they're anonymous and that the board was seeking input so they can further your vision and mission and see how you can serve this county. And so, but it's not the same one.
Format.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, and sorry, I should have had that clarified. I apologize.
Good question. Any others? Okay, we will now move toward new business items. Number one is the approval of the 2023-24 Summer Learning Plan for Catawba County Schools. Mr. Miller.
Good evening. Thank you. I am seeking your approval for our summer learning program. There are really three different parts to this. The first part is remediation and second administration for EOGs, third grade through our high school courses. The state mandates that we have 1 day of remediation before we have second administration. And just so you know, last year with second administration, our elementary and middle schools gained about 4 to 6% in proficiency due to second administration. So it's pretty important. We do offer transportation for remediation and second administration, and that is paid for with at-risk funds that we receive from the state. Transportation is a big cost there. I think we've got a good plan in place where we can pay for transportation, also take care of our staff members who are involved with this as well. So if you want to, if it's okay, we'll take this kind of in segments. And any questions about remediation and second administration before we move to reading camp? Okay, good. All right, so the second part of our summer learning program is reading camp. It's required by the state of North Carolina, and we do get funded by the state of North Carolina to the tune of about $250,000. We do pay our teachers and TAs and bus drivers who are involved in this 3-week camp. You can see the dates there, June 10th through the 27th. We are required to have 72 hours of instruction during the summer reading camp, and it's for third graders. And we also allow some second graders who we know are struggling, but it's for those students who have not shown proficiency in reading. And the state mandates this, so hopefully we can get those third graders as they transition in the fourth grade up to grade level with reading skills. And we use in-class data a lot to kind of pinpoint where they're deficient and put them in specific groups to try to target those areas of deficiency during reading camp. Any questions about reading camp?
Mr. Miller, lunch will be provided, I'm quite certain. Is that paid for from those same funds, or is that from our funds?
That is from, we do not have to pay for that, and the students do not either. So we start talking about, I just know that Miss Barrier, who's not here any longer, was taken care of through the state. Thank you.
It's a summer feeding grant, and the state pays for that. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That includes the breakfast
Lifeline.
as well? The breakfast breakfast and
Yes,
lunch is
sir.
in there? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Glad that. I'm glad somebody else is paying for it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I know. So any questions about reading camp? Again, it's 3 weeks, Monday through Thursday, 72 hours required by the state. And we need to provide transportation for that as well. And then let me back up for a second. We also have high school credit recovery, and we do that during the 2 weeks of work days right after the school year ends. And we use Edmentum to help provide that content for those high school students who need that credit recovery. And then the third piece to our summer learning program is Jumpstart. We started this 2 years ago, and it's really to help those students who are transitioning to a new school. For example, our rising 7th graders and our rising 9th graders. And so we have, because funding has been cut, we no longer have that PRC money for Jumpstart or ESSER money. We have cut Jumpstart to 1 day, but we still feel like it can be beneficial. And what we realized from surveying our 9th graders and our 7th graders 2 years ago when we did this program, what they really want at a Jumpstart is just to know the layout of the school, because they do not want to come that first day and get lost and look dumb. And so that's what we'll work on. That half day that we have them in August is really getting them familiar with the layout of the school, letting them go to their different classes, see their schedule, and move around the building and try to get familiar with some of their teachers. Again, that's a half day in August, and we are not able to provide transportation for this like we were the previous 2 years. We just do not have the funding. Transportation, just so you know, is about, when you have to use yellow buses, it runs us about $2.50 a mile. That adds up quickly if you're trying to do 5 feeders. So, any questions about Jumpstart?
I do have one. I love the Jumpstart. I'm trying to remember last year when we had PRC money or ESSER money, was kindergarten also included? That's always been big.
Yes, Dr. Barnett, it was. And we talked to our elementary principals about this. And because we have the staggered entry, we felt like it probably wasn't as needed as our rising 7th and 9th graders. So we just decided not to do kindergarten because of staggered entry. Yes, ma'am.
Good question. Are there others? And again, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Miller. At this time, you've heard the presentation on the summer learning plan. Is there a motion or are there questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve the 23-20.
I'll second.
There's a motion and second on the floor. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the summer, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you. Now, Ms. Aldridge will bring us quotes for sharp copiers and paper cut software.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Staver, I cannot believe it has been 5 years since we did a massive RFP for our printing devices, but it has, time flies, especially when 3 COVID years are involved. Tonight, I am here to recommend that we renew our paper cut software and our copier program with Sharp Business Systems. These programs go hand in hand. Our paper cut software, and I've asked Marty to help me if I get stuck. Our paper cut software provides follow me printing, which means that I can release a print job here, drive to Fred T. Ford and print it at Ford. I can release a print job here, walk to HR and print it there. It allows my print jobs to follow me everywhere. And then the other really neat thing about our paper cut software is that we have actually saved more than the program costs over the last 5 years, because when I send a print job to a printer, if I don't go print it in 4 hours, that print job is deleted. And so over the 5-year period, just from not printing print jobs that have been neglected, we've saved $66,793 so far. So it saves, when we did our initial RFP and walked through the schools, one of the amazing things that we saw were stacks of paper that had been printed and nobody ever came back for them. So this eliminates that. If you happens to me occasionally, if I forget to print something and it's been 4 hours, I have to go back and rerun it. But that's a minor inconvenience compared to pages and pages of wasted paper. So in conjunction with our paper cut software, which you have the proposal for, it's $56,595 for 5 years. You also have our preferred proposal. And when I say our, Shannon Nicholson is the technology representative who does a whole lot of work at researching devices. We also recommend renewing with Sharp for 5 more years using option 1, the partial replacement. We have 158 multifunction printers in our schools and central offices, and they propose replacing 158 of those. The ones that would be left, the 43 devices that would be left, have less than 200,000 copies on them over the 5-year period. So they haven't been used much at all. And the Sharp support team feels like they won't cause any problems with that replacement. And by doing so, doing the partial replacement option, that actually brings our cost per copy, which all we pay for is the cost per copy. We do not pay for supplies, toners, any of that, those supplies for the printers. We do have to buy staples for the machines and pay a cost per copy. So this is just our average monthly cost in the summer. We don't spend $30,000 a month on copies. During the school year, we we do. Probably spend a little more than that, but we have is about a 99% uptime with these devices. And the response, I called in the other day, ours was working very slowly for some reason. And I thought, well, I'm just going to call the 1-800 number and see how my experience is. And when I talked to the lady, it was in the afternoon, and she said, we'll try to get somebody out. And I said, oh, no, it's not urgent. It's just running really slow. Somebody was here the next morning at 8 o'clock. They put a new hard drive in, and we were good to go. So the service techs are very courteous. The response is fast. And honest to goodness, over the 5 years, I haven't had any complaints about the devices or the service reps, which is a little different from our former provider that we had before we switched. The machines phone home and tell sharp when they need toner. The toner gets shipped directly to the school. It just really seems to be a good program, and it's working well for us. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
How many pages a year are we printing? I've seen this sheet here with the unreleased jobs, environmental impact study, where it talks about sheets and total printed pages and all that.
Mm-hmm. We project that we will print 20 million black and white copies, a minimum of 20 million over the next 5 years. And we haven't had any problem, except for when we were home during COVID. We haven't had any problem meeting those commitments. So we get as you can see on the quote, we get a cost break once we hit 16 million.
That 16 million is per year.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're paying for.
Mm-hmm.
You're projecting 20 million over 5 years, right?
Yes, we have seen a steady increase each year with printing. We don't limit our teachers. The schools do have to provide their own paper, but we don't limit anyone on their number of copies that they can make.
As a former building level principal, I can say that with textbook funds being reduced at the state level like they have been consistently for over a decade, the need for copies has risen. So used to what we would have been spending on the other end would have been textbook funding. And so it's sort of an equal out. But yeah, I've seen that.
Under this commitment, we're paying for 90 million copies.
We pay.
If you do 16 million over 5 years.
It's per year, but we pay for the number of copies that we actually make. If we don't automatically pay for 20, they bill us each month for the number of copies that we make.
Mr. Chairman, based on this glowing review, I move that we approve the contract for the renewal of the Sharp copiers and paper cut, including option 1 for the partial replacement.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
A second.
It's the one that says March 20th revision. Shannon and I cross-haggled a little bit after the first option.
So everyone is clear about the option that we are voting on. It's the one dated March 20. I can say also, as a former educator, other than a lawnmower that won't start, a printer or a copy machine that won't work in the school might be the most frustrating thing that you can encounter. So it's good to hear that we are getting good service for our money.
I second the motion that Dr. Barnett made.
Well, actually, Ms. Richards did that, but thank you also. And So any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raised hand. And that is unanimous vote. Mr. Moore will now give us updates on the general contingency for Maiden Elementary School.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board, Dr. Stover. You see the general contingency spreadsheet and the 6 items that have previously, the 3 items previously brought. I'll bring to you 3 more tonight. One that was rejected, but 2 that thus far have been approved. One a credit and the other one an additional expense. Does anyone have any questions at this point in time? This is for information only, is not for approval. We started this project with $850,000 in general contingency. At this point, we still have $763,000 remaining, which I think puts us in pretty good spot, considering that we've got the building dried in and most of the major functions have been completed.
Thank you for that update. And again, if you follow consistently, almost every one of our projects are coming in with a surplus in that contingency. Thank you for good stewardship there, Mr. Moore. Also, you will now give us a request for approval of change directives.
4, 5, and 6 are for your approval. They've been approved by Dr. Stover as you've given us the permission to do that. Number 4 is in the amount of $31,866, and it was tied to the provision and installation of framed openings for roof penetrations. That had been omitted previously and needed to be as part of this project. Number 5 is in relation to the color of the tile. The color of the tile that we previously had chosen was Armstrong VCT. The product that was presented was Target VCT, and we feel that based on the color palette and meeting the needs of the school that we need to use or upgrade, if you will, Armstrong VCT for this purpose. That was an additional expense of $9,231. And lastly, number 6 is 40 additional marker boards that the faculty and staff has asked that we include within this project in each classroom. And that is in the amount of $31,612. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have with regard to these change directives.
Those come from the contingency fund.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
In regard to the marker boards, when we talk about the request, so was it in the initial plan that they wouldn't get a board? How did that?
No, sir. What we had was 2 marker boards, a projector, and a screen. And our teachers asked that an additional marker board be placed behind each screen. And that's individual preference, that's teacher preference. And rather than moving or offsetting or adding, basically using the same number, we felt that it would be best to just add those. Yes, sir.
Mr. Moore, on change directive number 5 with the tile, was it more than color? I mean, you mentioned color. It's quality more than.
I think it's, quite honestly, it's the shade of color, more or less. The blue isn't the blue that we want. It's close, but it's not quite there. And that being the amount, we felt that that was certainly something that we felt our contingency funds could be used for, is to ensure that we get what we want and make sure that Maiden Blue is adequately displayed in the building.
Are there other questions? You have heard the presentation for this request. Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the construction change directive presented by Mr. Moore for both of those items,
I'll second.
three items.
And we do have the motion and second for change directives number 4, 5, and 6. Any other comment or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of this motion, please signify by raised hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Ms. Davis, approval?
Second, Ms. T.
Ms. Teague, yes. Thank you. Approval of a resolution for the Bandy's feeder area proposed redistricting plan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you have before you a resolution, a proposed resolution approving the redistricting plan for the Bandy's feeder area. It is based on all the information that was presented at the March 11th meeting, including the attachments that were used by Mr. Moore. And the actual resolution references those attachments as the basis for your approval. If the board would like to add any other information, you're welcome to do that. I'll be happy to make changes, but it was all encapsulated in Mr. Moore's exhibits, including two of the 3 maps that he presented. And so this would satisfy, once this is done, then Mr. Moore can submit this to the county GIS department and also to the state if need be. So we would ask for your approval of the resolution as presented.
Also want to piggyback off that. During the meeting, we had several questions. Mr. Moore was able to answer all of them but one, and we're trying to figure out clarification. There was a question about redistricting around Claremont. We're asking the staff member who asked that question because we'd like to clarify, but we're struggling getting clarification on that. And I know a couple of you asked us to be able to respond to that. And as soon as we know what that question was, we do plan on responding, and I'll send it to the whole board too when we have further clarification, because we certainly want to answer those questions.
Also, just a point of order, even though this is technically a redistricting resolution, there are no students being changed. Nobody actually lives in the area that we are addressing at this point. And I was surprised to learn, Mr. Moore, that geographically, the large preponderance of that tract actually sits in the Catawba elementary attendance area as it now exists. So, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on approval of that resolution.
I make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raised hand. And that is unanimous. Ms. Davis will now go over approval of proposed amendments to our Board of Education policies, and this is a continuation of the efforts we've been under for these many months.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first two were presented to the board in February in my absence, actually before that. And there were minimal changes there, but I wanted to make sure we divided those so you know that those were the two that were carried over from February. The plans for growth and improvement of licensed employees, there were minimal changes in that. Some changes were made to highlight reference to a particular a particular other policy, professional and staff development. There were some changes to make it flexible so that when you refer to principal, you also refer to or supervisor. There were some rearrangement of words that really was just a matter of preference for the author of the North Carolina School Boards Association, and we're trying to be consistent with them. The next on page 4, to make it clear, even though, to make it consistent with state law, we added the provision that if an employee is within the final year of his or her contract, the reevaluation must occur prior to the statutory deadline for notice of contract non-renewal. So that's something that that was added that's substantive. Adding also on page 6 in 3B, and all this is in red, so you can see it easily. The board will strive to limit the list to administrators and teachers who have excellent reputations for competence and fairness. This is regarding teachers in schools not identified as low performing. And then another substantive change that is not that substantive because it's based in the law. It's just to clarify. Reassessment in subparagraph A and B, adding the language or that employee be immediately dismissed for conduct or performance that causes substantial harm to the educational environment. That again is aligned with licensed employees in low performing schools and teachers in schools not identified as low performing. Any questions about that policy, plans for growth and improvement of licensed employees? All right, the next policy is criminal background checks. That's proposed for deletion. Don't panic. It was included in a previous policy that was approved at the last board meeting. But this was absorbed into another policy. There's just no need to have two. So that we're proposing that for deletion. And again, where that says February 26th, and on the first one I presented, we're asking that be changed to today, March 25th. The next policy, career status, 7.3110, that also is proposed for deletion. The significance of career status, gosh, it was the phrase of the century, I think. And then all of a sudden that was eliminated gradually. And all of those terms that are relevant were absorbed into the next policy, teacher contract 7.4100. So we're proposing for deletion, career status policy 7.3110. Again, that being absorbed into teacher contracts. So teacher contracts policy, again, that has been placed. We chose years ago the model of, there are several proposals for modeling the type of contracts that we offer. Years ago, the board and HR and administration recommended to the board that we offer 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts, and then 4-year contracts. And the only real substantive changes, basically the proposed changes here on the first page is a clarification and rewording of language that's already been there. The most significant section is in subparagraph C, which talks about determining a teacher's years of employment, and that has changed by the board. A year is at least 120 workdays performed as a teacher in a full-time permanent position. Then it goes on to say that if a teacher in a full-time permanent position did not work at least 120 workdays as a teacher in a year for any reason, and then it talks about in the situations that it may exist for family medical leave or granted leave with pay, those types of things. So it goes in on to describe the circumstances and what applies in the determination of contract length. Before, it was just a simple line that says on page 1. For some reason, it says page 3 on the first page. But the term 1 contract year shall be from July 1 through June 30th. That's been further defined. There are no other significant changes. Any questions about that policy? The next is professional employees dismissal and demotion, 7.4400. There have been some additional cross references in that. Anytime you find a cross references are there for convenience, really. It's not an absolute mandate. But anytime you find another policy that may reference this, you want to add it to it. So that's been done.
I had a question about the line that starts off, any professionally blanked out. Any professionally licensed employee is unable or unwilling.
Which paragraph is that?
Right here at the bottom of that paragraph there. At the Where it
Any
says when
professionally licensed employee
it's at her
who
top, but that doesn't
is,
flow.
who is unable, who is,
Word who would go there. You're right. There
Right,
is a
right.
word
It's just
missing.
missing something, yeah.
Who.
who. We are required upon inquiry from a North Carolina local board of education, charter school, or regional school as to the when inquiry is made from one of those schools, we're required as to the reason for an employee's dismissal. We are required to indicate if the employee's criminal history was relevant. And the same is, then we also resignation by a teacher who has been recommended for dismissal under applicable state law is subject to the provisions of 7.4500, which has always been the law. This was just added as another clarification. Next is classified personnel suspension and dismissal. That relates to our at-will employees. The same paragraph at the very end of that is required upon inquiry from another local board of education, charter school, or regional school. If they ask for the reasons, we have to disclose whether it was because of a criminal history, which is a good thing. We've talked about the significance of that before. All the other things are just sort of expounding on the policy as it's stated, making it clear with references. And any questions on that one? Okay, next is payroll deductions, just to align with our state law and actual federal law with regard to, I don't know if there's, IRS, actually federal income tax requirements. With regard to payroll deductions, to make it clear, there's some rewording of child support payments and to add other court-ordered payments. Tax sheltered annuities was expounded upon. North Carolina 457 plans was expounded upon instead of just included in supplemental retirement income plans. 12-month pay was added, even though that was considered an other thing. Those were just spelled out. We've actually always been doing that. Even the recoupment of advancement or overpayment of wages was also added. But that's something state law allowed anyway. Any questions on payroll deductions? The next is permitted salary reductions for absences and discipline of exempt employees. Again, some of the language was expounded upon to make it clear. Clearly, one of the things that was added was subsection A1. The board will make partial or full day deductions from the pay of an exempt employee if the employee accrues paid leave, the employee is absent for personal reasons, or because of illness or injury. Again, this is in the benefits manual and state law, but they added it into this policy. And the employee does not use accrued leave because of the following reasons. And they outline permission for its use has not been sought or has been sought and denied. Accrued leave has been exhausted, or the employee chooses to use leave without pay. In addition, another reason for taking partial day or full day deductions was added to offset amounts the employee received as jury fees, witness fees, or military pay. That's always been the case. It's just spelled out here to make it clear. For unpaid disciplinary suspension of one or more of full days imposed in good faith for infractions or workplace conduct rules, again, that's always been allowed. It's just spelled out here more clearly. So those are all the ones that are on the agenda since the other two were removed, and I want to apologize for that. I did send those at the same time, and it's just a mistake that they didn't get to the board. So any questions about those policies and the changes? Other than the one change suggested by or pointed out by Mr. Settlemeyer, adding the word who in 7.4400 in the first paragraph, third line from the bottom. Any other changes that the board is proposing?
I think the date on the first two would have to be changed.
Yeah.
Mentioned also.
Yeah, exactly. The date on the first two to March 25th, 2024.
And as stated, number 11 and 12 will be on our next agenda. So at this time, I'll entertain motions on approval of proposed amendments. I won't give you the actual number of the amendments because that would take a while, but as numbered in your agenda, 1 through 10, we are moving numbers 11 and 12 to next month per the change in our agenda. I'll entertain motion considering those 10 changes.
Make the motion, we accept the policies as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Settlemeyer, second by Ms. Teague. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. And that is our final item before we get to the inserted closed session is approval of proposed schedule for Catawba County Board of Education school visits. We've been talking about this for a while, and I know someone else, forgive me for my abysmal memory, Ms. Richards, pardon me, have been working on this. So Dr. Barnett, I'll let you speak to that.
Last regular board meeting, we looked at two options that were presented by the committee of Mr. Abernathy, Ms. Richards, and myself. There would have to be a little updating to it. Of course, the board can make any changes they want. These were only proposals. But looking at the ones that are in our drive, option 1, you will see actually would have had the first visit. We did a visit on February 22nd to 2 schools, but we did not get to see Startown that day. So we would have to revise. In fact, I sent Mr. Taylor a revised copy of this, adding Startown to the end of the schedule. And we would actually have to start option 1 we could start it on April 11th because March 14th already passed, and we would just move the schools up one date, if that makes any sense. Or you have those revised ones if you want to send those, Mr. Taylor, to the board.
Okay, so we're looking at option 1.
Yes, that was one of the options we looked at. We would have to update it just because March 14th already passed. Looking at option 2, it could remain the same. We could still begin on April the 11th if we chose that and run through September of 2025. We would still need to add Startown in at the end on a revised one that I sent you, a proposed revisal. I just dropped on September 11th, 2025, I dropped the bus garage in the C&I building and put Startown Elementary in there instead so we could get to those schools. Not that we wouldn't want to get to the bus garage in the C&I building, but we would just have to do that at a different time.
Okay. Any input from the board on which one you prefer?
And one of the major differences is that option 1 gets us to all schools within a year's time. Option 2 just spreads it out a little longer and takes us until, I think, September of 2025 to get all schools in.
Okay, thank you for that presentation and also for your subcommittee's work. Is there,
May I ask, or when our board has come out to our schools, it's been great, and we want to thank you for that. We want to continue that. I think for our sake, being thorough rather than surface, it might be good for the board to look at option 2 and spread those out. I know it might be a little longer, but I know when I go to schools, I say I'm going to be there an hour and a half, and next thing you know, it's 3 hours. And then, so we end up having to cancel or something. So that might be something the board would want to take into consideration.
Understand what you're saying, Dr. Stover. It doesn't give any more time at the schools. It just spreads out the time on the school calendar as to how long it takes us to get through all schools on the school calendar.
I remove my last comments. Thank you, Dr. Barnett.
I personally prefer the second option. I know it, yeah, I think even though it doesn't get them all in 1 year, I like that option better. That's just that's not a motion, that's input.
Option 2 is especially good for those people who do work during the day, and you wouldn't have to get off from work as often or as much. It spreads it out over a year's time.
Other questions or comments? All right, y'all throw one out and let's see if it flies.
I'll make the motion that we go with option 2, for reasons stated and the way that it's laid out.
There is a motion on the floor.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to go with option 2 on the school visits for our meetings. Moving forward, any discussion or questions? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of option 2, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. That brings us to the end of our open session agenda. With the adjustment to our agenda at the start of the meeting, we will entertain a motion to go out of open session and into closed session. And I propose that we take a 10-minute break ahead of that.
I make a motion, we go into closed session. Okay.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning open session? And that is unanimous. We will reconvene in closed session at 10 till 8. Thank you, members of the public, for your attendance tonight.
Motion to approve as presented.